Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, the New York Institute for Special Education is celebrating its 190th anniversary. We are joined by a vocational teacher assistant and a transitional specialist from NYISE to learn more about their amazing program. Then the Boys Room is a mission-based affinity program designed to support Black and Brown boys grades 3 to 8. The founder and the program instructor / book club co-facilitator for the Boys Room speaks with us later on. After that, Inside Broadway is a nonprofit theater company that brings the magic, pageantry, and profession of Broadway to public school students throughout New York. We speak with the newly appointed executive director to learn more. And finally, the H.E.Arts Community Center is a vision that South Bronx Unite and several other organizations have had for over a decade. The founder of South Bronx Unite joins us in studio to tell us why this community center is needed. So stay tuned to all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne and today is Tuesday, March 12th. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. In 1831, a group of social activists realized the importance of providing educational opportunities to individuals who were blind. They established the New York Institution for the Blind, now known as the New York Institute for Special Education. This institution offers two programs, one for the blind and visually impaired, and another for developmentally delayed children. Vocational Teacher Assistant Rosalind Wright and Transition Specialist Mary Catechis joins me to discuss the school and its efforts. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Now, the New York Institute for Special Education has served individuals, as I mentioned, with disabilities since 1831. How has your organization evolved over the years to be more inclusive?
Well, in 1924, we moved from Manhattan to the Bronx. And in 1986, we became the New York Institute for Special Education because we opened up our readiness program, which also serves children who are developmentally delayed, like an early childhood program. So we opened up our doors from just blind to more populations.
Now, the organization is coming up on 190 years of service, which is an amazing accomplishment.
Yes.
What does this achievement mean to the NYISE?
I think this achievement just highlight what we do for our children and providing them services. I think we highlight it very well.
It's been a long road,
Mm-hmm.
and just to see the growth of the Institute and the amount of students that have gone through there and are successful is amazing in itself.
Right. Right. I definitely think just like learning more about the organization to see, like even today, you know, we're still, the fact that our society is still trying to just provide more opportunities for those with disabilities, to see that the organization has been around for 190 years is truly astonishing. So congratulations
Thank
on that
you.
accomplishment
Thank
again.
you.
Now, what services does the Institute provide for those who have visual disabilities?
On campus, we do have a mobility department that will train children how to travel safely in their communities to and fro work, college, or anything they want to do in life. And we have other programs that will help them navigate life, such as like the school store, so they can get experience working in the store, the school cafe, so they can get experience working in a restaurant type of environment, so things like that.
I mean, it really takes a village. Every piece, everybody who works there just contributes to that. We have teachers of the visually impaired who are specifically trained We have Braille everywhere. Like you said,
Assistive
orientation,
technology.
mobility. We have a residential program to help the students with their ADL skills and becoming more independent. Every aspect of the Institute works to help the kids grow so that when they do transition out of the school, they're able to be very successful when they leave our school. So we take the vision, it becomes adaptable, right? That's the simplest piece. It sounds funny, but it is because of the way everyone's trained, and they're able to transcend the disability.
Now, I definitely want to expand on that. How does the school ensure that they are prioritizing students in a way that may differ from public or maybe more traditional schools?
Our kids are free. They're free in our school. They're able to travel independently. They're not
Restricted.
They're not going to be with, say, one individual a day. They're traveling independently. They're going from class to class. They can participate in sports. There's really no opportunities for a blind and visually impaired student to participate in a basketball team or a soccer team.
Or cheerleading or anything like that.
Roz is also our cheer coach.
Yes.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that experience? I think that's so exciting.
I've been doing cheer for a very long time, and it's also like a hands-on sport when we teach them how to cheer and just showing them the various movements and getting them confident to go out on the mat and teaching them basic cheer skills and perhaps tumbling skills also. And it's a good experience for them because a lot of times those things are not open to our children to experience sports like that.
And I want to expand on your experience a little bit more because you're also an alumni, which I think is really cool. Can you just talk about your experience going from student to staff team member?
My experience as a student was wonderful because public school wasn't working out for me because I have a visual impairment. And I started the Institute about 8th grade. And I had a wonderful education there. I was open to do sports like cheerleading. I participate in cheerleading, sports, learning ADL, being more independent for myself. And I took that with me as a teacher at the Institute. And I can understand how many of our students navigate life with an impairment.
That's amazing. So would you say that that experience kind of helped you kind of transform or just like shape the way you interact with the students now?
Yes, I think I interact with them well because of my personal experience and what I have been taught in the field as a teacher assistant at the Institute and just doing various programs and starting various programs to help them navigate and be successful in life.
Well, she's a role model. She's a role
Yeah.
model.
Oh, thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
Mary, can you talk a little bit more about your experience as transition counselor and how you prepare students for higher education and life after school?
You know, there's a lot of career exploration. You know, we try to foster the career awareness. Again, when students can't see, it has to be more experiential. We have our PAYS lab that they get to experience jobs. We have internships, volunteer opportunities. So we started with a foundation of what are careers and let's try everything. And then also we have the college piece. So we are connected to the College Now program at Hostos. So our students are able to take college credited classes to make that transition better. Because once they do that with our support, when they leave, they're better able to function in school. And you know, we're trying to beat the rates of students dropping out. We're trying to beat the rates of joblessness. Right now we have a 100% graduation rate at our school. So it's step by step to get the students ready to their path. And sometimes college may not be their path and work is, and that's also great and amazing because we all have different paths to lead. And the goal is to get the students to their dreams.
Now, you mentioned internships, and I understand there's a really cool internship that has a connection with NASA. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
We started that last year. We have a group of students, and they're actually working on the NASA web pages to make it accessible for other students who are, or actually the whole population of the blind and visually impaired. So they're working with the NASA scientist, and they do the 100 pages of the globe.gov website, and they're able to assist them to make meaningful changes to the website to make it accessible for everyone.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
and then also just the connection with NASA on that level.
Yeah.
I could just imagine like how cool that is. So that's truly amazing. I definitely wanted to highlight that.
And it actually leads to competitive jobs for them after. There are real jobs to do this. So you're taking and learning a skill that will be a lifelong skill for our students.
That's awesome. Now, the school has also teamed up with outside organizations such as the NYPD. Can you tell us a little bit more about that connection?
Also great connection. Yes. They have been working on placing students with disabilities in summer jobs. So last year, we began working with them also. And they had one student in IT, they had another student in the medical division. And they offered these amazing opportunities with training and placement. This year, we're also working on hopefully placing a student and working with the animals. So there's so many jobs in the NYPD that are not a police officer that they're exposing our students to give them those opportunities and build an equity for the jobs there and for our students. Roz actually got to participate in some of that last summer in the training.
Yeah, can you talk about that experience?
Last summer, I went down to the NYPD headquarters in Manhattan, and they showed us what the kids will be doing, like in clerical, and what their responsibilities going to be for the summer, how they should act, how should they dress. This is a real job that they are going to, and many of the officers emphasize how, what you need to be competitive in that field and what they expect from you. And they didn't hold back saying, you know, we're going to treat you as any other employee coming into the NYPD summer program.
Wow, so this sounds like so many amazing opportunities, and I'm really glad to see that there's an organization that is putting in the work. You know, how can people learn more about this organization, but more importantly, how can maybe a parent or student know if this is, I guess, the right community, or when or how they should join?
They can check us out on our website, www.nyise.org. They can call us, 718-519-7000. There'll always be someone there to help you and connect you. They can come in for a tour and visit the campus and see, you know, my child has, you know, is visually impaired, legally blind. Is this right for them? They could also check out our readiness program. We're there to help, and we're there to support kids. We also have a few events coming up for the 190th, right, Roz?
Yeah, we have an art show coming up. We have a gold ball tournament coming up, and in what, a week?
Yes.
A week.
Which is the only sport for the blind, in which we have all the, we have a lot of schools coming in to compete against our students. 6
schools coming in from the eastern border, North Carolina, like Boston, schools like that. They're going to come to the Institute in another week to participate in that sport.
Wow.
Check out our website. You'll be able to see everything and see all the great things that the Institute does.
Well, that's amazing. I want to thank you both so much for joining us and, you know, sharing a little bit more about the school and the community that you've built. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
To learn more about the New York Institute for Special Education and all the programs they offer, please go to their website at www.nyise.org. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open after this.
The ability to have my show during this time is helpful because I can stay connected with my friends, still interview people, and share my content.
Happy anniversary to BronxNet 30 years. Wow, brings back so many memories. This exact studio that I'm in right now, I broadcast out of here. This must have been around 2003. I mean, time flies by so quickly. I started out here, it was either Mr. Gary Axelbank and Mr. Batch with Lady Morsar. We used to do a show here called In the Neighborhood. And I brought so many different guests on this show. To be able to bring your voice to the community is very powerful. To bring hip hop and spirituality, I brought my pastor in this same studio, Pastor Gino Jennings, and I'm sure you guys know who Pastor Gino Jennings is. That's rough. And some disciplined teaching. BronxNet is something that we need to uplift our communities, because this is a platform that we can come, and if you have a vision that's in your mind going into your heart, you can use it to do uplifting things for your community.
Welcome back. The Boys Room is an initiative designed to provide support and guidance to Black and brown boys in grades 3 through 8 as they navigate the challenges of elementary school, middle school, and beyond. The program seeks to empower these boys by fostering positive relationships with their peers, providing mentorship, and offering much-needed support during this critical stage of their development. Founder of the Boys Room, Cindy McField-Asamoah, and Program Instructor and Book Club Co-Facilitator, Nia Scott, joins me to discuss the program. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Lovely to be here.
for having us.
Now, what is the Boys Room and how did it come to be?
Great question. So the Boys Room is a mission-based affinity program for Black and brown boys in grades 3 through 8. We mentor, support, and empower them during a critical time in their development, and our goal is to really just enhance them socially and academically and to provide a foundation for critical thinking.
Now, why did you want to create an organization like this, especially focusing on young boys?
Great question. I have 2 boys, and so that they are my focus. And so when I created the program in 2019, I did a pilot first to just see if there was an interest, and I also noticed that there wasn't much representation in independent and private schools. And so my boys attend an independent school, and I wanted to create a community for them. And then just looking back, my past, I also attended a PWI. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. And so my siblings and we attended. And I just remember that feeling of not seeing folks that look like me in my classroom. So I really wanted to make sure that I did this for my children.
Now, you mentioned that it started in 2019, and as we all know, so much happened since 2019. How has this idea and just the overall program evolved since then?
Yeah, we started in New York City, and then a few years later we expanded to Massachusetts, and then shortly after that we expanded to Connecticut, and now we are in North Carolina. So initially I was actually just running the programming myself, but then, of course I can't be in all of the places all of the time, so then I needed to onboard staff in those states as well.
Now, can you talk a little bit more about, you talked about representation, which I'd like to hear from both of you. Of course that is very important, but the focus on young Black and brown boys from 3rd to 8th grade. Can you talk a little bit more about, the importance of the fact that it's for Black and brown boys and, in that age group?
Sure. Well, historically, I believe that Black women have understood the importance of cohesion, and you see it through so many communities, and I think Black and brown men need that kind of space to unify and form a brotherhood, So I think it's important to create that community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we provide a safe space for our boys. They enjoy it tremendously. I can share with you that, we have a few different offerings. We have the school base, we have the community base, and we also have the book club. And so You know, with the school-based programming, those are young boys who actually attend that school, and so we meet with them on their campus after school. And then the community-based programming is when we're working with several different schools and we're meeting with the kids on the weekend. And then, you know, finally we also have the online Lit Squad, which Nia actually runs that, and she can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I want to learn a little bit more about, you know, just some of the services. Can you talk about the one that you kind of run? It sounds really cool. I like the name of it. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
We love book club because we run it once a week, every Sunday, and for an hour, and it's on Zoom. So we have different cohorts in North Carolina, in New York, in the Bronx. In the Lit Club, we look at a different book probably every 2-3 months, and we look at themes that inspire the boys to dream, you know? We don't only look at themes of oppression and racism, which we do cover, but we look at what it means to be a child, you know? How can I represent, how can I show up in the world as my biggest self, as my light self, you know?
That's amazing, and I like that because I think a lot of Black and brown children, of course it's good to know about your history and what people go through, but just to be a kid and just to have fun is also revolutionary and means a lot. So I love that. And also, I love that the name kind of puts a positive spin, because whenever we hear the term like the boys' room or the boys' club, it's usually a negative connotation. And I love that the name is kind of putting a positive spin on that. So I think that's also really amazing. Now, I want to highlight how a lot of the services focuses on community building or building a brotherhood. Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of that, especially for a lot of Black and brown men and boys?
Yeah, so we focus on 5 core values, and our core values are confidence, belonging, leadership, awareness, and respect. And we meet with the kids throughout the entire school year, and so that's our focus, and we're always talking to them about those 5 core values. You know, we meet in person, and as Nia mentioned, we meet online, but you know, these kids, that's what they really need when they are in spaces and there's not much representation. So as Nia said, we like to build them up, right? We want to make sure that they know that they are the light of the world, so they know how to show up.
Now, I want to talk about how the Boys' Room emphasizes celebrating differences. How do you create an environment that encourages boys to express themselves without judgment and to celebrate their individuality?
Well, it's a safe space, right? And so, you know, when they enter, whether it's online or in person, they see folks that look like them, and immediately you feel comfortable, right? Like, you do not feel like you need to put on any airs at all, and you can really show up in your, you know, your true authentic self. So there are boys who have, you know, Caribbean background, they have, you know, West African background, and they're just really proud of that. And so we make sure that they share that with us, and you know, by doing that, that's public speaking, right? So the way that they're showing up in group is the same way they'll show up in the classroom.
And in the book club, no question is a bad question. And me and my co-facilitator, we really emphasize the fact that they're free to speak, and anytime someone laughs or giggles at a comment, we make sure we call that out, that behavior out, and say that that is not in line with who we are. We're a brotherhood, and we support each other's ideas.
Now, I want to expand on, you mentioned that sometimes the boys will have different backgrounds and come from different places, while also sharing something that, you know, I guess binds them together or kind of like builds community with them. Can you talk about, you know, how you see just this idea expanding even outside of New York, but still kind of holding on to that idea of togetherness and building community?
Great question. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things on the horizon right now, but it's really important, and I think what really ties the programming together is the Lit Squad, right? Because although they are in different cities and in different states, essentially doing the same type of work, having them be together online with the book club, that's an opportunity for all of the boys in all of the cohorts in all of the states to get together and build community online as well as in person too.
Now, what are some of the challenges that are facing young Black and brown boys, you know, in this age group? You know, what are some things that are unique to them that we may need this type of programming for this community?
Well, boys, when there's no representation, right, they oftentimes might feel a little self-conscious, right? You know, when there's no one in the room that looks like them, they might experience racism or microaggressions and things like that, right? So having a program like this, you know, where we emphasize how wonderful they are and really build them up, you know, I think that having this type of program, that will transfer into the classroom and eventually into the boardroom, because we're building them up. We're making sure that they know that they're amazing people. And so I think having them, you know, creating this foundation in grades 3 through 8, that's where you need to start building, not later in life.
Now, can you talk about the mentorship and what mentoring looks like at the Boys Room?
Well, mentorship looks different in the different spaces. So online, we have to be really cognizant of the fact that students are in their own homes, and so we have to really keep the eye contact. So mentorship online looks like checking in. Hey, how are you today? What's going on? What do you need today? In person mentorship, it's kind of, after a long day of school, you know, it's kind of hard to keep boys' attention. So mentorship is, okay, where are we at energy level? So with my boys, I go like, okay, how are we feeling from here to here? I'm feeling at 5, okay, I need to bring all my energy and kind of transmit it to you. You know, we kind of
do it that way, yeah.
That's awesome. Now, what are your aspirations for the expansion and the evolution of the Boys Room? And are there any new initiatives or areas of focus on the horizon?
You know, I always tell people this program has to outlive me. You know, I'm very intentional about making sure that it grows and expands. You know, right now we are in 4 states in 4 years, which is an amazing growth. And there's more happening. And I just really want to see this program everywhere, honestly. Everywhere where there are Black and brown boys who might feel like, you know, there's no one that looks like them, and they might feel like, you know, they're really not bringing their true authentic self into, you know, whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's, you know, sports or the classroom or wherever. I really want them to feel confident and be strong in themselves.
Now, does the organization have any collaborations with schools and communities for programming events or workshops?
Yeah, we've done quite a few in the past, and we have some things coming up. You know, in the past, we have worked with food pantries in churches, you know, where the boys would package, you know, food and deliver it to homes, or, you know, when we're working with you know, thrift stores, you know, the things that no one, you know, that they package together and they bring to other shelters. You know, I've done workshops this past few months. Actually, I was at the National Association of Independent Schools People of Color Conference. I was invited to do a workshop there, and that was in Missouri. I have a couple other workshops on the horizon coming up, just really putting the program out there. And, you know, everyone in the U.S. is, you know, attending these conferences, so it's really putting the program on the map in that way.
Now, I think this is an amazing program, and I think that the organization is in a really great spot because, you know, being around for about 5 years or so, like, it's exciting to see what the future holds for the program, to see how these boys, like, you know, how they are after they've gone through the program.
Right.
So I'm excited for the growth and the expansion. And I want to thank you both so much for joining us and, you know, sharing a little bit about the organization and the community that you've built.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
To stay in touch with the Boys Room and to learn more about their amazing programs, please go to their website at www.theboysroom.org. Stay tuned. We have more open for you right after this. Welcome back. Inside Broadway celebrates the appointment of Katie McAllister as a new executive director. The nonprofit organization has provided free exposure to Broadway shows to public school students in New York City for over 4 decades. In her new role, McAllister will be leading the organization's diverse and rich programs throughout the year. McAllister now joins me to discuss her new role and the overall goal of Inside Broadway. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what is Inside Broadway and its overall mission?
So Inside Broadway is a New York City-based children's theater. We provide arts and education programming in all 5 boroughs. We serve about 75,000 children a year in about 110 schools. We do an equity tour, so a professional live tour, theater tour goes into schools. We also do hands-on experiential theater programs in Shakespeare, build a musical. We do social emotional learning. We turn books into musicals. And we also have a Creating the Magic program, which is a connection to Broadway, where we show students all the wonderful careers available to them on the Broadway stage.
Now, already I love the program because I wish I was like a Broadway kid. So hearing this and seeing how this is just available to students is just so exciting to hear. I also want to mention the fact that the nonprofit is celebrating over 40 years of introducing Broadway to New York City public school students, which is amazing. Can you just talk about, the importance of bridging the gap between Broadway theater and New York City public schools?
Well, it's incredibly important. I mean, Broadway is New York. People come to New York to see a Broadway show. And 41 years ago, my boss, our president and CEO, Michael Presser, he was working with the H.E.Arts organization, and Cats was coming to Broadway. And he went to them and said, it's incredibly amazing to him that Broadway doesn't offer free tickets. So he went to the H.E.Arts, who then went to Really Useful, which was Andrew Lloyd Webber and company, and they donated 50 seats to Cats from the very beginning until it ended 18 and a half years ago, or 18 and a half years later. So students got to see a Broadway show every Wednesday matinee. And so that gave them connection. That began Inside Broadway's deep connection with Broadway. And we started a bunch of programs with them so that we could have students know that Broadway is there. Because if you live in the Bronx, it's a whole nother world, and you don't know Broadway is even there.
Right. I definitely love just the fact that you point that out, because this is our city, but when you live in a certain borough and you come from a certain background, it does feel like another world. And so that's why I think it's so amazing that this is happening. Now, I also want to say that the celebration continues as you take on the role of executive director. Congratulations on that. What does this achievement mean to you?
I just feel so honored, and it's amazing. I've been with Inside Broadway for 32 years, and I started actually as a teaching artist, and then became program director, and then from there became executive director. So I feel like Inside Broadway is just a part of me, and I'm really proud of our work, and it's an amazing feeling. And I hope to push the programs forward and the organization forward in the future.
Now, as you mentioned, you were a program director for over 17 years. What did you gain from that experience that will assist you on this new journey?
It really gave me a deep connection to our schools. I know all of our principals. My colleagues are always amazed because I'll say, oh, that's Mrs. So-and-so, and they'll be like, how do you know that off the top of your head? I was like, well, after many years. But having that entrenched, knowing what's going on in our schools, knowing how programs work, I feel it will make me a stronger executive director because I will understand everyone. I understand our teaching artists, I understand our schools, I understand my staff, and so putting that all together, I think that coming from the program director side, it gives me a different viewpoint than a regular executive director might have.
Now, what drew you to working with children and the overall world of theater?
So growing up, my mom loved movie musicals, and so we would sit and watch movie musicals. I did not see a Broadway show until I was 18 years old and came to New York. But I always loved musical theater, so in college I had a double major, and so that was what I did was musical theater and education. And then for children, I knew what theater did for me, and being that outside kid that wasn't cool and didn't really do sports, and so I can have that viewpoint. And so it's important for me to have students be able to have their creativity come to the forefront, have who they are come to the forefront, and really just have that experience. Because when, like reading a book, theater lets you walk in someone else's life, and it shows you a different viewpoint of the world, and it lets you then inform yourself, and it builds bridges, and it builds empathy, and so it has all these incredible things. So to me, that's why it's so important.
Now, as a Bronx resident, and we're here in the Bronx, so definitely want to shout that out, how have you seen the access to the arts pretty much just be overall kind of lacking in the borough?
So, you know, it's hard to get in, it's hard for schools to have access. You know, there's so much emphasis on testing, and then there's the funding component. And then there's just the, what do you want to do as a school, or what do you want to do as a community? And so I see things are opening up now. You know, the Department of Education is putting a little bit more money into arts funding. Our city council puts a lot of money into arts funding, which really is a game changer. And also for programs to have that relationship and to bring arts into a school, it changes the whole community of the school. And also having that, our connection to Broadway, with our Creating the Magic program, our students actually get to go to Broadway, and they get to see what's happening there. So things are opening up, they're changing. It's slow, I'd like it to go fast, but I do believe, and I'm very hopeful for the future that it will be.
Now, you mentioned Creating the Magic, which is a beautiful title. I just want to add, can you talk a little bit more about that program and, you know, how it just opens up a new world to so many of these students?
So Creating the Magic started years ago. We actually started with taking Broadway shows into schools with a few of the performers, and they would perform for the students, and they could have a talk back. And then from there it grew, and it was like, well, what if we could show them all of the other magic? So I like to call it a backstage pass to a Broadway show. So they come in, they see performances by the actors, but then we show them something that even if you've seen 50 Broadway shows, you've never seen. We show you how everything works. So techs come out and technicians come out, and they give demonstrations of the lighting and the sound, puppetry. We've partnered with Wicked and Moulin Rouge, Dear Evan Hansen. We have a Creating the Magic coming up in next week, and it's really exciting because students come in wanting to be an actor, and they leave wanting to be like a hairdresser, or they want to be a costume designer or a music director, because they see that it's a possibility.
Now, what are the long-term positive effects of participating, you know, of children participating in these art-based programs?
Well, it builds self-esteem, it builds community, it builds language acquisition, and it just makes you, as I was saying before, that it lets you walk in someone else's shoes. So that long-term effect of seeing somebody else's life informs your life, and it helps you to better understand, you know. And in our world, we don't really build community anymore. We're online all the time. We're texting and things like that. So I think that theater really helps us to not only understand the world around us, but have a better understanding of ourselves. And so that's the long-term impact.
Now, I definitely want to talk about representation since we are talking about New York City public schools. You know, how does this experience ensure that children in these areas feel represented in the theater and the arts? And I will say, just from my own experience, I do feel like theater is a very inclusive and, you know, a space that does value representation. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and, you know, how that works and how you ensure that with the children that you work with.
Well, theater is inclusive because, you know, people say, oh, they're a theater nerd, you know, so it's like everyone is accepted. And at Inside Broadway, I'm really proud of our programs. I'm really proud of our teaching artists. They are diverse backgrounds. They are diverse people. They look different. They have different thoughts. And that's important because for a child to be able to connect to someone, I always say to my staff, you know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so connecting to an artist and having that, the same thoughts or the same ideas with someone, but it's important for them to have that, and it brings out in them like just an amazing thing. And so, you know, I think that it's important to be inclusive. Our programs are also including our D75, our students with disabilities. We also do senior citizens that come into our programs, and so everybody is welcome. We do 3K to 90. So
and I love that because I think that so many people realize that they love the theater and the arts sometimes later in life, and I love that there's a space for everyone. You know, the organization has been doing so many amazing things for such a long time. What do you hope to see for the future of Inside Broadway?
I really want us to be able to expand even more. I want our programs to expand even more. I want to be able to provide services for everyone. I would love to see a funding stream opened up, either from our federal government, our state, and our city, that really provides access for everyone, that makes sure that there's funds out there so that everyone can experience the arts and can have an enriching experience and have that inform their life. And so for me, just it's like, you know, more. Let's just have more for everyone.
Now, can you quickly let us know how can organizations or schools collaborate with Inside Broadway?
Sure. They can reach us at www.insidebroadway.org. They can also go to our Facebook page. We're also on Instagram, and so they can reach out at any time. And we are also a DOE vendor, so if they're a school, they can contact us.
Well, I want to say congratulations once again on the new title, and thank you so much for joining us and talking a little bit more about Inside Broadway.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you would like to learn more about Inside Broadway, please go to their website at www.insidebroadway.org. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open after this.
I remember when the Bronx did not really have a media outlet properly representing the people of the Bronx.
BronxNet provides for the community by being a community where people can be empowered to share their voices.
We are in a really great place technologically. We've got all the resources that we need to be effective.
Whether it's through cameras, storytelling, editing, we have provided those services for 30 years.
BronxNet's mission is to be a voice for the community.
To educate, to inform, and to inspire.
And you can be a part of it. We've built studios for you.
Welcome back. On February 22nd, representatives from various groups, including South Bronx Unite, the Mont Haven-Port Morris Community Land Stewards, and Alembic Community Development, came together to celebrate the vision of the future H.E.Arts Community Center. South Bronx nonprofit organizations have a vision for the new building that blends services for holistic health, education, and the arts all under one roof. The co-founder and board member of South Bronx Unite and the Mont Haven-Port Morris Community Land Stewards, Mychal Johnson, joins me to discuss the project. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, can you tell me what inspired the creation of the H.E.Arts Community Center?
Well, you know, I live in Mont Haven in the South Bronx. And as you know, in our community, we have a lot of health disparities. And those health disparities have led to poor educational outcomes. We live in District 7, which is one of the poorest performing school districts in the city. And health disparities, I mean high rates of asthma, obesity, diabetes, you name it, it's hit us really hard. So as a resident, as a parent, as a member of our community, we came and others came together to create this organization, to create this health and education in the Arts Center, but it came through the envisioning of the community, right? It's something we saw, a vacant city-owned property that was vacated in 2011 that had a lot of history, but now was vacant. And we know that was an asset that we need to claim for our community, that we need to create the kind of self-determination and the kind of results we need as residents, or else it turns into something that we don't need or we don't really want. And so through envisioning, we envisioned and the community envisioned this project.
Now, what role does South Bronx Unite have in the development process? And, what was the moving force, or the driving force behind actually deciding to be a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, South Bronx Unite is like the organizing arm for the Mott Haven Port Morris Community Land Stewards. The stewards were created to make sure we can pull public land off the speculative market, so we don't have this cycle of disinvestment in our community, creating non-affordable housing for our community members. Right? Housing's being built everywhere, but not community centers, not holistic approach to health being created for our community, where we're going to have healthier outcomes, better educational outcomes. So our community came together to say, what can we do with this vacant building? 21,000 square feet. We knew we couldn't solve all of our problems, but we could help to take off on some of them, and thought this would be a great opportunity to do that.
Now, I want to talk about the name H.E.Arts because it stands for, as we mentioned a few times, health, education, and the arts. Yeah. How do you plan on addressing each letter of H.E.Arts with the new facility?
Yeah, health first. I mean, you can't do anything if you're not healthy, right? If you can't work, you can't do anything if you don't have not only physically healthy, but mentally healthy. And we're not trying to be another provider in the medical industrial complex that exists. We don't want Band-Aids. We need to really go towards holistic approach to health, right? To where we're doing health and wellness. We're doing screenings. We're doing mental health screenings. We're looking at a different approach, and I think community always had made that part of the overall resounding message that not one and the same, but something different, that we could really create the kind of outcomes we desire. In education, again, we need to do something for extracurricular activities for our children. Where this building is located is right by Mott Haven Houses, one of the 5 major developments, housing developments in Mott Haven, and just stone's throw from PS 49, part of District 7. But our children walk by this vacant building every day. And we've been having envisioning sessions, having H.E.Arts festivals, to show that this is something that we can create here that's for all of us. But we know that H.E.Arts for health, education, and arts is super important. Arts and culture has been our connecting tissue in our community. I mean, we are the contributors to 2 music genres, right? Also really contributes to the creation of graffiti art and multiple other different arts mediums. But we don't have a place to really do or have a place where our kids and our community can come to really relish in our deep culture and our deep understanding of how that connecting tissue of arts and culture is super important. And that culture is what makes our community rich and vibrant.
Now, can you talk about the transformation of turning this building into an actual center and a space for community? And, just what was that process like?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to the envisioning. Right now, we're in the midst of seeing a dream become reality. After the envisioning, we started doing a feasibility study. We had support from local elected officials to help to create this feasibility product that could really talk about and show in true and really written form of what the dream of the community was. And with that, we were able to advocate and push the city to release an RFP on this project, in which we then became the winning respondents of it. And we just continue to build a really strong team around having a joint venture developer, which will be part developer in this project as well. So we're making sure that we are also the guardians of this property for the community in perpetuity. They will continue to be health, education, the arts for perpetuity, to create for generations the needs that we have.
Now, I understand that the project has received support from city officials like Jose Serrano and Councilwoman Diana Ayala. Can you just talk about how important it is to have that support from, our leaders in our city?
Oh yeah, I mean, the borough president's supportive in it. I mean, I think they see that this is an answer to a lot of the woes that we have in our communities. This could be an example of how we do community-driven development from the ground up, because from the top down, it hasn't helped us a lot. It's actually contributed to some of the pains and the woes that we have. But from the ground up, we know as experts who live in our communities what the answers can be. And so our elected officials have been really responsive to that drive and that understanding, and now they're working with us to see that dream be reality.
And to also expand on that, because I thought that was a very, just like a really great comment that, you know, working from the ground up can help. You know, the center will also be fully community controlled and held in perpetuity for public use.
Yes.
Can you just talk about, you know, why this was kind of like the direction that the organization wanted to go in, and how it could actually just be a little bit more helpful to the community?
Well, we've seen what's happened to public land in our community. It's also most often created terrible health outcomes, from the Cross Bronx Expressway to the heavy saturation of diesel truck intensive operations in our communities that's causing the high rates of asthma and obesity and diabetes. We see how public land has been used and taken off as a means to give away to sometimes private developers to create things that don't benefit us. So we want to make sure that this property, this building, this land will be held in perpetuity by the community for its own public good. And we know if we don't do it that way, then it can always be at the realm of the thought or the motivation of any governor or mayor to say we're going to change and train this into public housing, or not public, or not even affordable, but market rate housing. And we know there's a need for community centers like these to be really the guiding light to changing the outcomes.
And what does it look like when something is community controlled? Can you give us some examples of like ways that the community will just kind of have an impact on the center?
Yeah, I mean, for an example, look at community gardens in the South Bronx or in the Bronx. And when they're ran and they're operated by the community, it looks like the community's been there. It doesn't look like a park. It doesn't look like it's all asphalt and very little green space. It's raised beds, it's hen coops, it's beehives. It's really rich in culture, it's representative of the community. And I think when we put our hands in steward spaces like these, different outcomes exist.
Now, can you talk about some of the other organizations you're collaborating with on this project?
Yeah, I think you mentioned Olympic Development Corporation. They are a mission-driven developer that we're sharing the responsibility as being the developers. Our organization's 51% owner of the property until they leave in 7 years. But we're going after new market, a lot of different financial mechanisms to pay for the renovation of the project. We've also partnered with institutions like Hester Street and Olympic, BKSK is our architect of record, and Nandini Bagchi is the design architect. But South Bronx Unite has teamed with organizations across the Bronx in collaborations on multiple environmental justice issues. They've all been participatory in seeing this project move forward. It's not just for us, it's for everyone in our community, and that community is Bronx-wide. It's an example of what we can do together.
Now, how has the local community been involved in shaping the development and kind of like fostering the community that is the H.E.Arts Community Center?
Yeah, again, it goes to the people who live right there, who live in close proximity, not only to the structure, but live in this 2.5 square mile radius of a neighborhood of 60,000 people. They have been seeing for a decade what we've been doing to push this project forward. They've been participatory in the events we've been doing monthly during the summer, annually in front of the building, where we do a blocked off party where we are bringing on different organizations that will take part in the operations of the building. One entity is Upbeat NYC, who trains youth about all the music instruments in an orchestra for free. But they don't have the space. They're working on 2 church basements. So this building would create an auditorium space that they could bring their students in, and we could show and highlight what our community can do.
And can you just give us some examples of some of the things, you know, it could be feedback or just things that the community wants to see?
Yeah, I mean, they want to see how we can create something together that answers some of those questions, such as holistic approach to health, to better educational outcomes for our children. And some of the feedback we've gotten is, how do we do that with serious intentionality on bringing in partners to maybe really see that dream come about? So we've been really meeting, we've been meeting with a lot of different organizations about what they can provide in this 21,000 square foot facility that's between these 3 pillars of health, education, and the arts, to create the real, the vision of H.E.Arts.
Now, it's been 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what do you hope to see for the community center 10 years from now, and how do you, see that positively impacting the local community?
I think what's going to come about in this building will be on our own envisioning. I mean, we're just putting the foundation in place for there to be this kind of collaboration to create a true holistic approach to community health that has not existed. And so what I see will happen in the next 10 or 15 years, I think it's be beyond our recognition of what the possibilities are today. That has never existed, but I think it will grow and manifest on its own. But these three pillars being able to live and thrive and create different opportunities, not only in Mount Haven and Port Morris, but throughout the Bronx and other communities like ours that are environmental justice communities that have been left behind for decades because of top-down decisions, that we can show what self-determination looks like from the ground up.
And can you talk, what has this done for you personally? Can you talk about, the connection? It's been a long relationship, 10 years. So, what has this, or how are you connected to this?
I see the building every morning. I live right down the block from it. I've seen what happened there before. It was a center for recovery from opioid addiction, and they would use acupuncture and Reiki as a method of recovery. That gave a lot of hope to the community. I see this building, this structure is more about what's going to happen in it than the building itself. And I know what's going to happen in that. It's going to give more hope to our community. So every day I dream, I look at it, and I keep working towards it. All of my time, volunteer time, and I don't get paid for the job I do because I know the payment I'm going to receive is in our children's future. You can't get paid for that. That's more of a reward than anything we could fathom.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and talking about, this project and how much it means to you. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
To keep in touch with South Bronx Unite efforts in making the H.E.Arts Community Center move forward, please go to their website at www.southbronxunite.org. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios from 33, or watch anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren Jaime on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.